بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. Thank you, Ambassador Tyler. Thank you for all distinguished audience. Thank you for Mrs. Robert Wright and the U.S. Institute of Peace for this opportunity. I am happy to be with you to give you an update on Tunisian transition to democracy. Exactly 1 year ago, Tunisians celebrated their second free and fair elections. Although النهضة came second, we celebrated the elections as a victory for all Tunisians. As we see it, a free and fair elections is a victory for all Tunisians. We congratulated the winner at the time, ندوة Toonis, on their victory. Today, النهضة proudly serves in the coalition government that represents nearly 80% of parliament. This model of democracy, coalition and consensus is being celebrated by all friends of Tunisia and all believers in democracy. But the road hasn't been easy. Just over 2 years ago, in 2013, Tunisia's democratic transition nearly collapsed. Many voices were raised seeking to shut down the parliament and stop the writing the constitution. Tunisia, at the time, faced risks, but the single most important factor for me was the hopes and dreams of generations in Tunisia and indeed around the region that our countries can achieve democracy. That being a Muslim and Arab and Democrat, we prove that it's possible. What mattered most for us was to protect national unity and save the democratic transition process. At that critical moment, we made a very difficult decision, rarely made by political parties. We gave up power that we won through free and fair elections, and accepted to join the national dialogue. We also decided to choose reconciliation and not revenge against people who were in the old regime. We voted against the exclusion law, which would have excluded everyone who worked with dictatorship. We did this because we saw that happened in Iraq and in Syria, which led to the collapse of the state. We also believe that we need national reconciliation to open a new page in our history so that we can focus on the present and the future, not just on the past. Our decision, together with the other parties in the dialogue, put the train of democracy on track. The writing of the constitution was continued. We wanted a constitution for all Tunisians, not just the majority. That is why we adopted consensus and dialogue as a means of solving differences. As a result, the Constitution was voted by 94% of Parliament. We now have a Constitution that guarantees democracy, human rights, equality between men and women, freedom of conscience and belief, and freedom of press. As a result, Tunisia had its second free and fair elections, and we are now building the institutions of the Democratic Republic. Throughout that difficult period, we have always tried very hard to avoid polarization, whether between Islamists and secularists, or between revolutionary forces and old regime. This, I believe, was also very important for the success of the Tunisian model. Cooperation between moderate Islamists and moderate secularists is necessary for the success of democracy in our region. That is why when we won the 2011 elections, we chose to form a government with two secular parties. And that is why, after 2014 elections, we decided to join the coalition government with ندوة Tunis, AFAق, and UPL. We believe that transitional democracy, governing with 51%, is not enough. We need a wide majority to create a stable and strong government able to make the necessary reforms. The Nobel Prize recently awarded to the National Dialogue Quartet is testimony of our achievements. But Tunisia has not yet reached safety. Despite our huge progress, we have many challenges ahead. The first is the economy. Economic growth is key to building a stable democracy. The revolution was a call for freedom, development, and jobs. Young people are now waiting to see if democracy can deliver any fruits. Our government is working hard to reform and modernize the economy and create opportunities for all Tunisians. We are introducing a new investment code, bank reforms, and public-private partnership law. The second challenge is security. Our enemies know that if they attack the economy, they can undermine democratic transition and extinguish the last flame of Arab Spring. النهضة is working in government to protect the security of our citizens and visitors through a new counter-terrorism law and security reforms. النهضة believes that ensuring safety and protecting human rights has to be compatible. Repressing freedom to protect security only undermine both. We were the victims of oppression before. We are committed not to allow the old practices of oppression to return. We are committed to protecting the human rights of our citizens and freedom of expression and the press. Despite the challenges, we are very optimistic. Tunisia has already shown that it can overcome the biggest difficulties peacefully, but we need your urgent support. We need a dramatic increase in international support from our friends. We need a mini Marshall Plan for Tunisia. Reform takes time, but we need to work together to show that democracy does deliver. Tunisia provides an alternative to the other narratives in the region. The first call for extremism, terrorism, and claim that Islam and democracy are not compatible. It calls for the clash of civilizations. The second claim that stability can only be achieved through dictator and oppression. Tunisia provide an alternative that Islam and democracy, Islam and the human rights, Islam and the equality between men and women is possible. Thank you.
Sheikh Al-Nghnouchi, let me thank you on behalf of this large crowd on a rainy day for your comments, for your broad explanation of the challenges, as well as the successes that you have contributed to and that all Tunisians get credit for. Sheikh Al-Nghnouchi, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask you just a couple of questions here. Chances are Robin will want to ask a question or two. But then we would very much appreciate your comments, questions for Sheikh Al-Nghnouchi as well. And then we will wrap up by 11:30 just because we have another, the Sheikh has another meeting that he has to get to. So, but to start off, Sheikh Al-Nghnouchi, with Robin's reiteration of the challenges that you described as well. You described the economic challenge and the attempt by terrorists to disrupt the economy. And Robin pointed out the importance of tourism to Tunisia. A great source. I mean, many people in this room probably have been to Tunisia and been to Tunis and have seen the potential of that, of the attraction and of the economic benefits of tourism there. So to strike at that, for terrorists to strike at that, is a challenge that you mentioned. And you talked about the counterterrorism law and the balance between safety on the one hand and people's rights and what you're fighting for in terms of democracy on the other hand. It's a challenge that all countries face, that we face as well. Robin mentioned corruption. Again, a challenge that we all face. We face it here. Every day we can read the newspapers in our country, and every day in every country there is that as well. So if you were to pick one of those challenges that this coalition government that you've described, what would be your first, what's your guidance to the government? What is the top challenge that you would take?
I think there is real relations between the economy and the security. We couldn't improve our economy without guarantee our security, and guarantee the security vis-à-vis terrorism is not easy if, as Ruben said, that our region is full of chaos. And also we have to respect human rights, respect the law to contradict and to fight against terrorism. So we have to keep our democracy, to save, respect our democracy, in the same time to fight against terrorism. But the economy is very important, because most of the young people who deal with or has linked with terrorist group, they're coming from the poorest region of Tunisia, as you said. So we couldn't fight against terrorism without fighting against the high level of unemployment in the country. So we have to face the economy problem and to improve our infrastructure. So the two problems are linked each other, and we have to face both the economy and the security.
So the economy and security, one thing, and then Robert, right to you.
In respecting democracy in the same time.
And respecting democracy. Now, on the third piece, on the democracy and indeed the governance, you've mentioned, and Robin alluded to as well, that you're now in the second coalition government since independence. So Ennahda has joined two coalitions with secular parties, and you've demonstrated that that Ennahda, unlike other similar political parties in the region, and we're going to come, I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about the region. What is it about Tunisia that allows that to happen, that allows the Ennahda party to join with secular parties in a broad coalition that now, as you say, the second coalition that you've been in, 80%, so it's a broad coalition. What is it about Tunisia that is the Tunisian model? I think you used it, Robin mentioned model as well, that might refute those who say that Tunisia is an anomaly. We've heard from several people, Tunisia is the exception. It's not the rule. Is Tunisia a model that can be emulated? Is there anything? Is there the ability to adopt the Tunisian model across the region?
Each country, Arab country, has its specificities. We in Tunisia opt on coalition government, on cooperation between Islamists, not all Islamists, moderate Islamists, and secularists, and also moderate secularists, because there are some extremists, and their extremism based on modernity. Like, for example, the far right, the far left against the far right. So we face in Tunisia both all sorts of extremism based on Islam, like the Ansar Sharia, and or the far left based on so-called modernity. But we opt for inclusive system, where we can include and can all moderate can participate, because transitional democracy within the transitional democracy, government cannot be based on simple majority, 51%. It has to based on vast majority. We call it in Islam ijma', sort of ijma', many, so vast majority. What we have done during the first coalition and the second coalition. The first coalition, we led it. The second coalition, it led by ندوة Tunis. But we accept to participate by some ministers to support this experience. And we hope that this model of in Tunisia can affect positively other Arab countries.
Robin, you wanted to...
I want to ask a question. One of the things I heard in Tunisia in December was the very sad story of a Tunisian who'd gone to Syria, and the story went that he had called his uncle at one point, very concerned about that he wasn't as happy as he thought he'd be joining ISIS, and that he was trying to get out, but they'd confiscated his passport, and that he kept in touch with the uncle, and then his uncle didn't hear from him, so he called, and someone else answered the cell phone and said, "Oh, he was a suicide bomber last week. He has died." And the story implied that he had been forced into doing something that he didn't want to participate in. We're now more than a year into this ISIS phenomena. Can you give us a sense of what you're hearing on the ground about Tunisians who are going and joining extremist group, be it Nusra, ISIS, or any of the others? How deep does it go? How has it changed? What's the government doing to try to stem the tide? Give us an insider's feel on this issue.
This question is very important, and many people ask why Tunisia, which under the democratic regime, cannot control their young people. Thousands of them join Iraq or Syria or Libya, join them as part of terrorism. We have to take in account that this phenomena is not new one. It's inherited by Ben Ali regime. So it's these people, these young people, are the remains of Ben Ali regime, reaction of dictatorship regime. Even the total terrorism in the region are the fruit of terrorism, of dictators, whether in Iraq by Saddam Hussein. Now the remains of Ba'ath join in Iraq, join ISIS, and in Syria also, and in Libya, the remain of Gaddafi join Al-Qaeda or ISIS. So our region is victim of dictatorship regime, and what you can expect to come out from such regimes. You expect that democracy can emerge from this kind of regime, the regime of Saddam, the regime of Gaddafi, of Ben Ali, of Hafez Assad. The reaction of this tiny, this tyranny, the reaction is from the same essence, from the same identity. So, but we gave we constitute another response We refuse to respond the violence of regime Ben Ali and by violence, but we call for democracy as a real reaction, because respond the dictators respond violence by violence, it's circle without exit. So we have to avoid to react against, but in Tunisia and in Libya, in Iraq, Syria, everywhere, there are some people react against terrorism, against dictator by violence. We refuse this regime and we refuse these reactions.
This is, Robert, hang on. This is a very important point, being here at the Institute of Peace.
Yes.
We look for those kinds of reactions. We look to see how a nonviolent approach to mitigating and resolving conflict, and sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's real hard. And as you've said, there is a balance between counterterrorism actions on security to crack down, and on civil rights. But guidance for us here at the Institute of Peace on how this nonviolent approach works. What guidance can you give us or others in the region? And I know Robin has a follow-up question too. But what guidance on nonviolent approaches, Sheikh Ghannouchi?
Yes, we have to be committed with the peaceful means in our actions. Whether even if one regime is dictator, we have not react by violence, because we enter in a circle without end. So Tunisian people react against Ben Ali by peaceful revolution. And this is the main character of Tunisian revolution, that this revolution is peaceful revolution, and succeed to remove Ben Ali without using any violence. And after that, we opt on dialogue between Islamist and no-Islamist, and we establish coalition government between both. So we don't believe that we have to export this revolution, because we don't believe with exportation. But if we succeed, if this experience, this model succeed, can be model for others, good experience which can be influenced other, or others can have benefit from this experience, but without any sort of intervention outside our country. We refuse any sort of intervention.
I want to go back to my question because I don't think you answered it. It's 5 years in December since the beginning of the uprising, when Bouazizi set himself on fire. And it's hard for me to believe that there are people who have joined ISIS or Nusra or Al-Qaeda in any of these countries are still reacting to Ben Ali or the environment. It's in some ways a reflection of whether it's the secularists or the Islamists that have failed them. They don't believe that anyone's delivering. And I'm trying to get at the deeper sense of you as the leader of an Islamist party, you know, how pervasive is this still? Is it growing? What's the kind of inside feel from having to deal with this from those who are believers themselves, and yet are joining not Ennahda, but they're joining, the extremist movements? How is the problem deepening in Tunisia today than it was a year ago?
Well, this phenomena is very marginalized phenomena in Tunisia. Yes, the phenomena of extremism is very marginalized. Very marginalized. It's, as I said, a reaction of dictator. When the revolution started in Tunisia, the Tunisian prison contained more than 3,000 of these people. And they committed many crimes against Ben Ali regime. And they joined Afghanistan and they killed Sheikh Masoud, okay, who killed, you remember, who killed Sheikh Masoud, who was Tunisian. It's before revolution. So the environment was ready to push some Tunisian young who are upset to join this illusion that they can solve the problem of Tunisia or the problem of Muslim nation by using violence against regimes, against Americans, against any regime. So it's a lack of freedom in this region, lack of development, lack of good education. Tunisia was there is a vacuum during Ben Ali regime and Bourguiba regime. There was a sort of vacuum because our governments during the independence, they closed down to Zitouna Mosque, which was like Azhar. None of terrorists has been educated in Azhar. Do you hear that there is an Azhari who joined terrorist group? No, because who study Islam, he discovered that within Islam, within the heritage of Islam, there are many opinions, many ijtihad. So you cannot establish a terrorist in Azhar, but in engineering it's possible. In any sort of technology you can establish a terrorist, but within the human science and Islamic science, among the human science, it's not easy to educate a terrorist. So there is lack of knowledge about Islam, lack of democracy, lack of development. So this disease has to be fought not by the police only, but through good education, good economy. So because this phenomena is very complicated, the phenomena of terrorism has to be fought with set of remedies.
Sheikh Nushi, you just mentioned the fact that many people don't understand Islam as well as the other complicating factors. Robin Wright, in addition to the book that Linda mentioned, Rak the Kasbah, also wrote another book about the Islamists are coming. So if it's all right with you, I'm going to ask Robin a question on this, and you can comment on her response, which is, based on what you've seen now in Tunisia, an Islamist party, a Nahda, leading the way in some real sense, how would you answer, what's the concern in your book? update your concern on the book on the Islamists are coming.
Well, we actually, it was very interesting. We did a complete rewrite of the book, second edition. And the two bottom lines are, first, that political Islam, which soared into political life across the Arab world, has plummeted in terms of appeal and position for a variety of reasons. And extremist Islam, the other end of the Islamist spectrum, is now the dominant trend. And this does not bode well for the likes of Ennahda or those that are willing to work within the political system, the many branches of the Muslim Brotherhood. It's clear that the old elites are not going to, or are prepared to do almost anything to hold on to power, to retake power again. And that this is one of the kind of tragedies, I think, of the last 5 years, is that those hopeful parties that wanted to play ball legally, share power, have been either marginalized, excluded, or in the case of Egypt, there was a military coup. So I think that's where we stand 5 years later, and I don't see any reversal anytime soon unless there's some kind of military setback, or in Syria and Iraq, or if there's eventually some kind of political solution in one of those two places. But the momentum is all on the side of extremists right now.
Any comments on that before we open it up to the audience for other questions?
I strongly believe that violence cannot be any solution, but it's a problem. So the solution is to spread the modernity, spread the dialogue and the reconciliation. No exit for using violence it can complicate the situation, not resolve. So we have to spread the mentality of reconciliation, dialogue, and spread the peace, not the war. We're in
favor of that here. We are
in the right place.
We are in the right place. You are in the right place. Welcome to the Institute of Peace. So let me now open the floor for questions for Sheikh Ruji and for Robin. I can ask a question for Robin. You can too. Let's start here, and there are mics that are coming toward you. Right here.
Good morning, everyone. Assalamu alaikum, Mr. الغنوشي. I am myself a Tunisian citizen, and I think, like many Tunisian fellows, we have this question in the back of our head that is, what is happening for Ben Ali, since you've mentioned many times that he's the source of many problems happening today in Tunisia. Is it one of your priorities or concerns to seek extradition for Ben Ali, despite the fact that he's been sentenced to life prison by a military court, but he's in Saudi Arabia right now? So what are you doing for having him back and face justice in Tunisia? My second question, very quickly, you have explained that there is extremist Islamist party and moderate Islamist party. How do you define the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, and have you been into discussion with them after the military coup?
Can I repeat the first question?
Yeah.
First question.
The Brotherhood in Egypt, so far they abstain to react by violence against the coup d'etat happened. And we encourage them to continue, we encourage their youth to continue reacting peacefully, because we believe that violence is a problem, not a solution. So if Ikhwan Muslimin continue reacting peacefully, so no problem. But if they go to violence, I think it's they will be another Ikhwan Muslimin, because the Ikhwan Muslimin, the brotherhood, as we know, a peaceful movement, not violence movement so far.
And Ben Ali?
Ben Ali?
She asked about Ben
yes.
Ali.
Ben Ali, we defend his right to fair trial and to enjoy his identities like passport and any identity. If he come to Tunisia, we want that he come back to Tunisia to be tried.
Are you seeking or working to get his extradition?
Yes, we asked Tunisia government, asked Arabia Saudi to deliver, to send Ben Ali to Tunisia, sent back to Tunisia.
Good, thank you. In the rear, yes, sir.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum, ahlan wa sahlan, Sheikh Rashid. Thank you.
Can you introduce yourself? And
Yes, my name is Muaz Zemni. I'm a Tunisian. I've been here for 31 years now. Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Thank you, Ms. Robin. Now, your assessment is almost kind of oblique here. Tunisia is being commended for all the good work. Your book on saying Islam is not coming, it's a little bit, the title is kind of a little pessimistic. But Tunisia has shown the way and has led the way. We need to fully support this country and its experience, not experiment. I emphasize, because this is not a workshop. This is a choice by the people of Tunisia to get on this march for democracy. The best investment is in democracy. Now, we're looking at the symptoms too much. The symptoms of terrorism, the symptoms of extremism. We need to address the roots. This is where the problem is. And like the Sheikh said, we need a mini Marshall Plan. A true plan, not half-heartedly support, a full support, full-blown support behind Tunisian experience and decision to get on this march for democracy. Now, my half of the question is addressed to Sheikh Rashid. Sheikh Rashid, you've shown the way and you've led the way, and I consider you the new Gandhi of this era. النهضة has تنازلت كثيرا، تنازلت أكثر من اللازم أحيانا، لكن في الجانب الآخر نجد كثير من الاستئصاليين، كثير من
you want to stick to one language.
Yes.
Stick to one language.
In English.
Okay, so on the other side, we see that Nahda has really gave up a lot of things, sacrificed, made too many sacrifices. But this coalition, it's been seen as almost such as a status quo, jumud, immobilism. It's paralysis in the country because nobody is really showing its color. The Nida is not really showing its color. Nahda is not really showing its true governing. So it's a coalition, but it's not an actionable coalition. What are the red lines of the sacrifices of Nahda? Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
We are part of this coalition, and any government based on coalition can some quarrel, some problems can emerge from these four parties in government, but I think the state, the government is stable, and Mr. Seed, the Prime Minister, is independent, not belong to any of these four parties, so he can rule without being linked with this party or other parties. So it's, I believe, and I think that the Prime Minister is an honest person and moderate person, and he is in the right place. So we back him, we support him without any hesitation, without any problem.
Can I say one thing?
I think the support of United States from the beginning of our revolution supported us, supported the revolution, but its support translated very with modesty. We supported now by all democracies. We gain many prizes, Nobel Prize, International Crisis Group from, but this word has not yet translated into deeds. So if that experience considered as benefit not for Tunisians only, but is in favor of the all countries, because we perform a new model, new interpretation of Islam, where Islam is compatible with democracy, human rights, international cooperation. So supporting this interpretation of Islam, supporting this model, is the only alternance of Daesh, of ISIS, of Qaeda. But we see that the investment on democracy is very modest if we compare it with the investment on fighting terrorism. But the short way for fighting terrorism is to invest in democracy. This investment is so far very modest.
And you called for a mini Marshall Plan, and that was referred to by the questioner as well. Robin, you had.
I do, and I think you put your finger on the real problem, and that's the political status quo. The fact is that a lot of the reforms have been stalled, particularly when it comes to economic issues, partly because of the labor unions. The government has actually had to raise wages at a time that it should be that World Bank says it needs to cut back on its budget. And so there's this tension. But there's also, I think, a sense that the amnesty law they're considering to amnesty people who were charged with corruption under Ben Ali perpetuates the status quo. If they pay back some money, then they're not going to be charged. They're not, they'll be open to be part of the system again. And I think that it looks like there's a slippage into the ancien regime getting more of a role. And of course, those are the people who might be able to get the big contracts and so forth. But there is this catch-22, and that's why I say Tunisia is a casualty, that you can't get private investment, and people are not willing to invest because of security issues. And tourism is down 25% from what it was in 2010, and that's a devastating blow. So you have not only new sources of revenue, but you don't even have some of the old sources of revenue. So they're trapped economically in this and declining, trapped in the status quo politically and declining when it comes to the economy. And that's why I think it's a casualty. Yeah, we all want a Marshall Plan. We want a Marshall Plan for all of these countries. I think one of the biggest U.S. mistakes was, as in the case with Libya, we're willing to get rid of Gaddafi, but we did squat all when it came to trying to help build a new Libyan government. And of course, that has an overspill impact on Tunisia and countries, south to the Sahel and across North Africa. So, it's a real tragedy, and I fear that Tunisia can't break out of that cycle, and no one's going to help it. Call it David.
So, calm down. Yes, right back here, and then right here.
مرحبا بك لواشنطن شيخ راشد. My name is Asma Ghribi and I'm a Tunisian journalist. My question is, so Ennahda campaigned on things like social justice and breaking with the corrupt and repressive practices of the past. Unfortunately now, senior Ennahda members have been speaking in favor of this amnesty law that was just mentioned now. So how does Ennahda explain this shift in its position, especially that before, 2 years ago, Ennahda flirted with the law of the political exclusion? Thank you.
It's true that we exclude to legislate the project of exclude the former isolation law. We refuse this project, and we consider that very important, because what happened in Iraq, in Egypt, where such project become a law, and it's constitute a base of or pretext of civil war. So one of the characteristics of Tunisian model, Tunisian exception, is that we avoid such law, and we opt of cooperating between the present and the future, the past. And because crime, we cannot condemn by collective the people. The crime is personal, is individual. So, but about the project of economic reconciliation sent by the president, permit me to ask our member of parliament, Saida, to explain. So.
Yeah, right here.
Hello everyone. It's a great opportunity to thank you for coming and to show interest on what's going on in Tunisia. Actually, economic development is something very important for us at the moment. We've been suffering, during decades, from a system which was a very exclusive one, based on favoritism, on an economie de rente. And we're paying, the consequences of it. And the Tunisian state, who was kind of, for years, making the difference and being able to control the social situation, is no longer able to do it, because it's definitely a time to take courageous policies here. And when it comes to what we called the reconciliation law, which is more actually a law which is a transitional justice law. Our idea today, this is one of the options we're working in, is in accordance also to the recommendation of international organization, is how to improve the actual existent transitional justice law, which has been adopted in 2013 under our government, and who shows that this is the right way actually to fulfill transitional justice. And we have a reality, which is that those who actually hold the capital in Tunisia need to be included in the process of economic development. And this is also why we adopted just 1 week ago the public-private partnership agreement, because we believe that we need to work in good intelligence with the private sector and the public sector. And this is also why we are in a moment where we are redefining completely our model of development. And this is something a lot of, middle countries like us are facing. We can no longer work with the previous system. And this is why also it's important for us to come here to speak with also our European partners, because we are, again, in a moment where we're thinking about new ways, innovative ways of development. And we want to invest massively in sectors like, for example, the agriculture one or new technologies, and to make Tunisia also being one of the leaders in the green economy. So this is, as you can see, I mean, a lot of the path we are trying to develop and to work in.
Saida, thank you very much. Very good idea, Sheikh Ghannouchi, to have the face of the Tunisian Parliament, member of the Ennahda Party, a great representation.
And she's member of Finance Committee.
Finance
in the
Committee.
Parliament.
Thank you, Saida, for doing that. Yes, sir.
Dave Ottaway from the Woodrow Wilson Center. I wanted to ask you, a year ago there was discussion about Ennahda setting up a political party separate from the movement. And I'm wondering where you have come out on those discussions. And it does strike me as a little strange to have a movement that also has a dawah function inside a coalition government.
This discussion is continued so far, because it's not easy to decide in this ideological problem. Now we are a political party, in the same time we are social movement. We are social movement. We have activities with the trade unions, for example, activities with cultural field. But now our vision is going to sort of division, of separation between the political activities and the social activities. Perhaps in next March, our conference can decide. Our Congress will be held in next March and can decide this problem.
Thank you, David. Sir.
Assalamu alaikum. Dr. الغنوشي, I'd like to have, my name Amin Mahmoud from Center of Egyptian American Relations, and I would like to have your advice what the Egyptian can do against a fascist dictatorship regime in Egypt who kill his own people with weapons provided by United States and the West, giving them that and create a lot of radical people join ISIS. The coup happened 2013 while Tunis have a problem in that time. That's why a lot of Tunisians join ISIS and many Egyptians join, and the future is grim. Many people will join ISIS and join all radical group because the West is sleeping or they don't understand why ISIS exists after attacking Iraq. And immigrant from Egypt will happen if that situation continue downhill in Egypt. And you talk about peaceful resistance. Peaceful resistance is something we support, but the young people against that. Is a struggle between the old and the young people from Muslim Brotherhood and liberal group who are in prison also, when you're looking at above 40,000 prison in Egypt. Thank you.
I don't see any solution in Egypt different from the solution in Tunisia and everywhere, is to commit, to have a strong commitment with the peace, with the democracy, and refuse any sort of react against the violence, the official violence, by popular violence, because it can lead to more victims and more catastrophe. So my advice is to seek reconciliation between the army and Ikhwan Muslimin and liberal and Copt, because these bodies are well implemented in Egypt. So why we نبدد, why we waste our time and our blood in fighting each other? So this is the solution, is to seek real dialogue, real conciliation. If the regime now refuse, we'll be convinced tomorrow that there isn't any sort of exclusion. It's impasse, not solution.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. John Anderson, independent analyst. Sheikh Rashid, you were, for something I believe over 20 years, a political exile during the period of repression and violence under the Zine bin Ali regime. In effect, in exile, a form of amnesty in France, in the UK. Following up on the issue of Egypt-region relations, a rather more specific question. In the aftermath of the military coup in Egypt and the violent repression, thousands killed, many hundreds continue to be jailed. Not just Ikhwan Muslimin, of course, but liberal and leftist activists as well. Did, during the period of the first, I believe it was the first coalition government, did any overtures, were any overtures made to provide political amnesty, exile to those Egyptians facing repression? We know that many went to Qatar, others found exile and asylum in other countries. What was the position of the Tunisian government? What statements were made? What offers were made of political asylum to Egyptians? And if not by the coalition government, then by Hizb al-Nahda or Harkah al-Nahda, what kind of positions were taken at that time? Thank you.
Tunisia استضافت, hosted more than 1.5 million Libyans during the revolution and until now. So Tunisia is open country. We didn't receive any طلب, يعني any request from Egyptian to seek asylum in Tunisia. If someone did that, I think Tunisia is part of UN countries which give the right of anyone who arrested or oppressed in his country to seek refuge in any democratic country. So Tunisia is open.
So I think we have time for one more question here, please. Yes.
Thank you. Manar Ghunaim, Middle East News Agency, Egypt. Sheikh Rashid, I want just to ask you about how do you see the future of Muslim Brotherhood as a group, especially that you said now that you encourage them just to stop violence and to resort to the peaceful protests. So how do you see the difference between the elder leaders and the young who are now calling for violence or for just violent protests? And do you still think as Nahda that Muslim Brotherhood is still an umbrella for all Muslim groups so far up till now as it had been before? Thank you.
According of my knowledge, I didn't hear that Ikhwan Muslimin Brotherhood in Egypt, they commit with violence, but still refuse reacting by violence. That's what I hear. I didn't hear that they belong now to the terrorist group and become part of Al-Qaeda, of ISIS, of even Britain, which investigate in this matter whether Ikhwan Muslimin are a terrorist group or not. Britain doesn't, the result is that Ikhwan Muslimin are not a terrorist group.
And I think another part of the question was the relationship between the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt and other Islamist parties in the region.
Our movement, Nahda movement, is a Tunisian movement working within Tunisian law. It's independent. But we have a relation with all Muslims in the world who are do not use violence.
Sheikh Al-Ghanoushi, that is a good ending for this. Your presence here, your message of the existence and the possibility of Muslim, Arab, democratic, moderate politicians and the ability to form those characteristics into a governing body, into Tunisia, still with the challenges that both you and Robin have outlined, still in need of support from the United States and Europe and the international community, but nonetheless you are showing that there is a Tunisian model that you've both referred to. So I want to thank you very much for being back here again. I want to thank Robin for her good questions and her presentation. Please join me in thanking Sheikh Al-Ghanoushi for